Good Thursday afternoon, everybody. I'm meteorologist Tim Pandajis with an update for you on the tropics. We're going to talk both about the Atlantic Basin and the Pacific Basin today, which both have active systems. Today is Thursday, August 13th, 2020. Make sure you hit that subscribe button too, and if you like what you see after this video, hit that like button too. All right, here's a list of the names that we have for the season so far. Today, we got our 10th name, Josephine. That is now a tropical storm. That was tropical depression number 11 yesterday and strengthened and organized enough. Well ahead of climatology here as we look back. Typically, we see our 10th named storm in the Atlantic Basin on or around October 19th. So 2 months, over 2 months ahead of schedule. With the formation of the J name, it is the earliest occurrence of a J name on record, beating out the previous holder, Jose, back in 2005. Now, I want to take another second here and kind of talk a little bit about the comparison between 2020 and 2005, because there's been a lot of comparisons thrown around. So let's look at the numbers up through today, August 13th. So far, we've had 10 named storms in the Atlantic Basin so far. 8 of those have been tropical storms. 2 have been hurricanes. Now, when you look at 2005 through that same time frame up through August 13th, we also had 10 named storms, but here's the difference. 6 of them were tropical storms, 4 hurricanes, and of those 4 hurricanes, 2 turned to be major hurricanes. That's category 3 or higher. Now, when you calculate a season's intensity, you go off of something called an ACE, or accumulated cyclone energy. And when a storm is stronger, more intense, and has a longer duration, those numbers are much higher, and 2005 had already blown us out of the water from where we are right now. So 2005 still well ahead, even though we have the same amount of named storms. Here's a look at the Atlantic Basin out there right now. We'll focus in on Josephine that has had a blow up of convection or thunderstorm activity. We're looking at the infrared satellite imagery here to get the temperatures of the cloud tops. We're seeing the whites here and the blacks. That's very cold cloud tops there in the last couple of images, and it's completely encircling the center there, meaning it's organizing and getting stronger. It's taking advantage of that overall environmental condition that's conducive for it to develop. Overall, it's quite a small system, about 300 miles in diameter, so it's not massive. And right now it's located a little over 500 miles to the east-northeast of Barbados. It's going to track well to the northwest of you, northeast of you there, and then to the northeast also of the Leeward Islands. So not really a threat to land, which is some great news. Here's how it looks on the visible satellite imagery. I want to point out something interesting here. With that flare-up of convection or thunderstorm activity on satellite imagery now, it's evident of a central dense overcast. You kind of see how it looks milky here. That's because those cloud tops are so high, and then they begin to spread on out with high cirrus clouds, and they kind of obscure the view here of where you would mainly find a center. And a lot of times this obscures the view of finding an eye to a very strong hurricane. We're not having that in this case, but it's just something to point out, a central dense overcast or a CDO. Overall, the environment, aside from the dry air, pretty conducive. Although we talked about its small size, a lot of times small systems can more effectively kind of ward off the dry air from being entrained into the circulation. Also, a small system, we had talked about this with the Gonzalo, a lot of times it's very hard to pin down its intensity. They can flare up and intensify real quick, but they can also weaken just as fast. So it's going to be something to watch here over the next 24 to 48 hours as it's moving through some very warm ocean waters, and it's only going to get progressively warmer as it tracks to the north and west. We need 80 degrees or warmer. We certainly have that, and it's not just the skin of the ocean that's extremely warm. It extends down to a depth. The ocean heat content is there, and it's even more so there farther to the north and west. So here's the official track from the National Hurricane Center going off the 11 o'clock advisory. Winds are up to 45 miles an hour. You need 39 or greater to be considered a tropical storm, so this is certainly on the low end of things, and it's not going to blossom into this massive monster of a system, which is good news. It's going to actually only strengthen around 60 mile per hour winds or so. But of course, with the small size, it could intensify briefly higher than that. But as we get out towards the weekend time frame, as it's north of the Leeward Islands, it's going to start to encounter some more wind shear. And notice the general direction here. It starts to take that northerly turn. It's going to interact with a trough or a front dropping in off the east coast, and that'll introduce even more shear, tear it apart, but lift it to the north too, steering it clear of the east coast of the United States. The only threat it could possibly bring would be to Bermuda, but at that point in time, it's going to likely be a remnant low and just a fraction of what it was in terms of intensity and strength. So here's how it looks on the models. Notice all of them pretty good consensus here off to the north and northeast of the Leeward Islands, and then taking that turn to the north, staying a fish storm, even likely probably to the east of Bermuda. Now let's look at the GFS ensembles here, the 21 members. Most of them all showing the same thing, same general track as we saw there on the spaghetti models. This is just all the GFS, run 21 different times with different variables, kind of changed just a little bit, and all of that off towards the north. And then there is pretty good dispersion there where it is east or west, but notice it is still well away from the U.S. East coastline and does not look to be a threat. Let's jump over now to the tropical Pacific. A brand new system there, and this is Tropical Depression 10E. You can kind of see here embedded in this train of tropical activity or convection thunderstorm activity, kind of lifting out of the intertropical convergence zone here. And something got a little organized, so it's been named Tropical Depression, but it's not moving into an area that's particularly very conducive for it to strengthen into a big system. In fact, it's only expected to be around here for a couple days. It's going to be encountering some wind shear because overall, the ocean temperatures aren't all that bad. They're in the upper 70s, low 80s, plenty of moisture and heat content there. Just the wind shear that'll likely knock it down, and it's a very, very slow movement there. That also introduces something called upwelling. It's kind of mixing up the ocean waters, and eventually it's self-limiting, and we'll lose all the energy there that's in the ocean. All right, that's the latest update for you today on this Thursday. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, hit that like button. You can find me on social media, Facebook, Instagram, and on Twitter. We'll see you again tomorrow for Friday. Have a good one.